I feel like Elton John. Yes, I feel like Elton John, but welcome to Fitmas. I'm doing 12 days of Fitmas on YouTube. I'm doing 12 days of giveaways as well. Each day that I do a giveaway, I'm kind of giving a YouTube chit chat, vlog, whatever to accompany that giveaway item. And there'll be offers for my programs. There'll be one-off specials that are really affordable and freebies. So there is something for everyone. And on day one, I wanted to accommodate everyone. So we're going to do a freebie, and it's going to be free macro calculations. So if you were stuck and, always those macro calculators online, they aren't always accurate because you're only giving like height, weight, activity level. I want to know more about you. So it's really easy. All you got to do is fill out the form below that I link, and I will give you macro calculations. Now, I don't know how many I'm going to get. So depending on that, it may take a day to get back to you or a week. I'll make sure to keep everybody updated with that. But just fill out the information below, and I'll be happy to send you some custom macro calculations that will be more accurate to fit your goals. Okay. And I'll make sure to check in on you after a couple weeks to see how things are going too. Okay. So happy Fitmas. We are going to dive into today's topic, which relates to the macros, which is the common mistakes that I see when tracking food. Okay, the top common mistakes, and there's actually 8 of them, so there's a lot to go over, but again, I see this a lot. I help people track food on a daily basis. I have an in-app macro tracker that is fantastic with a meal plan recipe generator. It has honestly been the best food tracker I've ever used, and I've used my Fitness Pal, I've used my Macros Plus, I've used Chronometer, I've used so many different ones, and there's always something I don't like, but this has it all. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive right in. So I was thinking, should I keep these glasses on? Should I what should I do? I don't want to be too distracting, so I'm going to take them off. But also, I don't know if you noticed in the background, we have some holiday lights, just to make it a little more festive. I'm going to try to show some festive things while we're doing these videos, okay? So let's dive into the 8 mistakes I see while macro tracking. I have notes over here if you see me referencing it. So number 1 is going to be ignoring micronutrients. So you may not have known this, but we have macronutrients and we have micronutrients. So macronutrients are your 3 big basics: protein, carbohydrates, and fats, right? The micronutrients is pretty much everything else. So sugar, fiber, all your vitamins and minerals, those are going to be your micronutrients. And while you can hit your macronutrients pretty well without really worrying about micronutrients, you'll feel pretty crappy. It's kind of like the studies that they do with that guy. He was like, oh, I ate a Big Mac every single day, or I ate strictly McDonald's and I was still able to lose weight. And it's like, yeah, you probably ate less calories, than what you were burning, and you were in a deficit. But what were your micronutrients like? Like, what was your macro split? You might have felt like garbage. So we need those micronutrients for vital functions. They help us stay fuller longer. They help us carry out just everything, helps our cells function, get energy going, balance our hormones. So it's important, and often, especially in this day and age, we're very deficient in a lot of things. If you suspect a deficiency, because a lot of common deficiencies, things like vitamin D, zinc, magnesium, these common things can cause a lot of blanket symptoms that make us think like, what the heck is this? When it could just be something simple like, hey, we need to add more fruits and vegetables into our diet, or take a supplement in addition to that to help with it. So like feeling tired all the time, sluggish, feeling cold, lack of weight loss, no energy, crappy sleep, all these things can literally just be from a micronutrient deficiency. So you can get blood work done for that. If you ask your doctor, that's great. Another one that I recommend is Ulta Labs, ULTA labs.com. You can actually buy your own blood work, and it's pretty affordable on there. I use that for my thyroid testing, and I enjoyed it. It was very affordable, and I got the results I needed. It was done independently because my doctor refused to take that extra step to test for thyroid antibodies, which ultimately diagnosed me with Hashimoto's. But you can get like like full panels done on there. So definitely I would recommend that if you were interested in looking into it, because you don't want to supplement with something or eat a ton of stuff if you aren't deficient in a certain nutrient, because you can run the risk of over supplementing, and that can produce its own problems. Because there is a world out there, you know, with supplements now, they just throw vitamins and everything. In drinks, they're throwing vitamins. And a lot of them are like fat soluble, or you'll just pee them out. But there are some that can stay in your body. I'm sorry, the fat soluble actually builds up in your body, but the other ones you might pee out. But they'll build up in your body slowly over time. You can get some weird side effects. That's why it's good to test and not guess for that. But in general, if you eat like more processed foods, it's better to eat foods, whole nutrient dense foods, because the processed foods are often stripped of the nutrients. They might throw a couple things in, like bread, for instance. They'll usually throw different kinds of nutrients in there, but it's best to get it from the whole natural sources. That's why like an 80-20 balance is usually good with that. So just making the switch and looking at your diet and thinking like, what do I eat now, and how can I, you know, transition to a more nutrient dense version of this, you know what I mean? So maybe for a snack you do fresh fruit, or add some veggies and hummus as opposed to maybe pretzels or potato chips or whatever you may eat. Like, look into those little swaps and see how you can make that switch, because I guarantee with that change alone you'll feel a world of a difference better. All right, so number 2 is overlooking food quality. So this kind of ties into the macros. You'll see a lot of these are interrelated for sure. They all play a role together. Usually if you make one change, you can knock out a couple of these. But more processed foods, like we were saying, tend to leave you hungrier. They have less nutrients, and they make it harder to hit your macro goals overall. So, you know, I get it. I train a lot of busy women. They are on the go. They work shifts. And sometimes that first step, we do need to just do the processed foods. You know, it's going to be a lot more protein bars, protein shakes, quick grab and go meals. And I mean, it's better than, you know, eating just an untracked, unregistered diet, right? That might be crappy with like McDonald's and whatnot. But eventually we want to be able to, like I said, try to find ways to get those whole foods in, even if it's frozen veggies, frozen fruits, you know, pre-cooked grilled chicken that's frozen. You know, what's going to be the next best thing that we can do to make it a little bit better? Another thing that I see that's not as popular, but back, you know, 2012 to 2015 or so, there was If It Fits Your Macros, which is macro tracking, but it's like IFYM. You may see that term, but everybody was so excited with tracking macros because they're like, oh my God, I can literally fit whatever I want. And yes, to an extent, but people were doing like these weird combos, like a whole pint of Halo Top ice cream with like a Pop-Tart on top, and they're like, it fits my macros. And we had the 1 gram waffle. You don't even want to know about the 1 gram waffle. That was disgusting, but we all thought it was cool. And 1 gram of carb waffle, I should say. And that's when we turn into these frankenfoods, where it's like, oh, we're so happy that we can fit all these bad foods into our diet, and we're eating like cookies, and it's amazing. We're still hitting our goals. But again, that leads into that micronutrient deficiency. Our macros probably aren't quite balanced. We're going to feel like crap. And this kind of comes down person to person, because something can have that macro structure that we want, something like a protein bar. And that's cool if you're on the go in moderation. But I've noticed, this is just a personal thing, I've noticed that when I eat stuff like that, I might get hungry faster. You know, it might not sit well. It might get more bloated. So pay attention to your body with that too. This could be any food. I know for me, oatmeal is a big one. Red sauces don't sit as well with me. So there's certain things that I'll eat, and I know even though it might be healthy, it might have good macros, for me personally, it's like digestive wise, it doesn't work, or, you know, it just makes me not feel that great, so I substitute with something else. So be sure to listen to your body for that as well, because that makes a big difference. So again, that kind of comes back to looking at food quality. Okay, number 3, kind of going to the other end of the spectrum, is going to be being too rigid. Okay, so when we're too rigid with our tracking, I actually just had a client like this, and it was kind of fun because she was really, really good at tracking, and she was taught to do kind of the bodybuilder style, like, here's your macros, here's your calories, you know, fill it with chicken, broccoli, rice, you know, all whole foods. But I showed her how, like, if she wanted a Yasso bar at the end of the night, or on the weekend she's gonna go out to Applebee's, like how she can fit those meals in while tweaking some things, and it allows room for life. You know, we're not on the freaking food end of the spectrum, but we're not on the bodybuilder end of the spectrum. So that's where being too rigid can be a problem, because then it just turns into any other diet. We're being restrictive, and it's going to make us crave things and binge, right? Because at the end of the day, I say this time and time again, tracking itself, tracking macros, is a tool. It is not a diet. It's cool because you have these guidelines, and then you can fit what food you want in there based off your lifestyle. Yes, it requires a little bit of work, but once you get the hang of it, it's great for long-term success. And you don't have to track forever. Like I said, once you kind of find out what foods fit in your general goals, you could just eat those. And once you know what the portions are, and then, you know, when things switch up, you could reference the tracking again. But it's a tool that tells us what we're eating, what we're doing well, what we need to change. It just gives us data. So if you look at it, that makes it a little bit less stressful. But when we do it, that rigidity, that is when it becomes a problem. I will say though, the reason bodybuilders do track that way is because it is easy. There's no room for error, really. Like if you have plain chicken breast, not really cooked in oil or no seasonings, you have your broccoli, like they're very raw, pure foods, little room for error in tracking. The more processed we get, the more kind of guesstimating we get, oh, this is about a half a cup, that's when the room of error can grow. And for someone like a bodybuilder, they need to be on point. They need to be down to the gram to get the best physique possible. For the lifestyle person, we don't need that, right? We're looking to feel better, be healthier. Yes, you might be looking to lose a couple pounds, tone up your physique, change the shape of your physique, but we don't need to be quite that strict to still see great results. That is, I always tell people to think of bodybuilding. It is a sport. It is an athletic competition. And think about what other athletes do. They train extreme hours. They're very rigid with their structures, but that doesn't translate over into lifestyle. So something to think about, okay? Number 4 we have is neglecting fiber. I actually just made a reel about this last week, and it was, you know, the Olivia Rodrigo song about how she pays attention to things that other people ignore. I'm not going to sing for you. But the thing that people don't pay attention to is fiber. Again, there is a lot of foods that have fiber added into them, but if we get it naturally, usually through fruits and vegetables, through like the skins and things like that, fiber is amazing. So fiber is basically our body's like internal scrubber. We can't digest it, so it goes through our body and our intestines, and it kind of it drags like all the gunk with it, you know, it pulls all the stuff with it. It's kind of like a Mr. Clean Magic eraser, I don't know. And it helps clean out everything, but it's great for digestion, regularity, again, cleaning out the gunk in your body. It helps your body be more efficient, and you'll just feel better. So the average grams you want to follow is about 20 to 30 grams is a good range, usually 20-25 for females, and then probably 25 to 30 for males. Again, this is going to differ person to person. If you're a smaller person, definitely go for less. If you're a taller, bigger person, you want to shoot for a little bit more. Definitely try to track it if you can to see if you hit that range and where you're at right now. Also be mindful of making that jump too soon. So if you like add in a ton of fiber all of a sudden, you're going to have some negative effects because your body's not used to it. So you're probably going to feel gassy and bloated as your body adjusts. So try to slowly bump it up. And, you know, if you are feeling those things, know that it's temporary and your body is just adapting. Okay. But fiber is amazing. One of those micronutrients, right? So we have that. Number 5. Okay. We're a little over halfway through now. Inconsistent tracking. Okay. This is a big one for people who just aren't in the habit of tracking. So inconsistent tracking, not being consistent, leads to inaccurate data. You can't catch trends or really see what you're doing, which is true. So like if you only track 1 or 2 days a week, like I don't know what I'm looking at. I might be seeing a good day, might be seeing a bad day, like I don't know. Also, the impartial days are kind of useless too. I mean, I could look, me as a coach or you as someone who's just looking at your own logs, you know, you'll look at the meal for what it is. You might be able to see the meal, but like that doesn't see what happened the rest of the day. Like, you could have did great for breakfast and then you had a buffet for dinner and you went like 1,000 calories over. I don't know. So that's the hard part there. You do in the beginning at least have to really commit to being consistent. Usually when I have people start tracking, I say I want you to log what you're eating for at least 2 to 3 weeks, especially weekend days. At least 4 solid days would be great, but I would love to see 7. But definitely include weekend days, because people's habits tend to be different on weekends versus the weekdays, because it is less structured, so they tend to not be as organized, and that's when they tend to kind of mess up with their macros. So I like to see those days more. One way to overcome this is just taking the messy action and forcing yourself to track, even when it feels uncomfortable, and just doing it. And even if it's not perfect, just practice getting those reps in, look and go, like I was lazy, I didn't track, now that I have a couple minutes at the end of my lunch break, I'm gonna go back and log my breakfast, log my lunch. Even though I didn't weigh it perfectly, I'm still gonna think about what I did and try to be as accurate as possible. Or if you go out to eat and you're like, I know I'm gonna be really over on my macros, I don't want my coach to be upset, or you're just gonna feel bad about yourself, I say log it. I don't care. I want to see the mistakes. I want to see when you go over, because one, it ingrains it in your brain when you go, when I eat 5 Texas Roadhouse rolls, I'm definitely going to go over my macros. So it trains you to be like, okay, no, we're not doing this. And then it also just allows you to put in the reps of tracking. Okay. So that is one way that you can go over that. But definitely, if you are, like I said, it's collecting data. If you're going to learn through tracking, you want to be consistent with it. It's, like I said, at least at first. Once you've gotten in a good groove and you feel comfortable, you can kind of cut back on the amount of days. I would still include at least one weekend day in there to hold yourself accountable. And then people go off it all together. And then once they feel they need to tighten things up, or maybe they want to slim down for vacation, or they just feel like they've been off track a little bit and they need that structure, I say go back to it for a little bit. So it's one of those things that you're always going to revisit, because it is a tool. Okay, so that is number 5. Probably one of the most important ones, I would say, out of this whole list. Number 6, setting unrealistic goals. Okay, this kind of plays into the bodybuilder, the too rigid one. With unrealistic goals, it's basically, again, going back to the diet culture mindset of, we're going to make my macros extremely low. Okay. And you're not gradually adjusting. So that's another huge thing I see. And that's something that's problematic with macro calculators is, you put in your information based off what you said, it gives you a number. Okay. That's fine. But what it doesn't take into account is what you're already eating. Okay. So like, let's say you're eating 3,000 calories. It's going to be a little bit more of an extreme example, but just so you get the idea. So let's say you're eating 3,000 calories and you put in your macro goals for weight loss, fairly sedentary, you work out 3 days a week, you put in all the stuff. And it says, well, you need to be at 1,800 calories to lose a pound a week. Okay. So making that jump from 3,000 to 1,800 right off the bat, you're going to feel super restricted. Okay, I see this on my 600-pound life and stuff too, and I get that their situation is a little bit different. They're more like they could literally die or have a medical emergency at any moment, but like they'll be eating, I don't even know, probably 5,000 plus calories a day, 10,000, and then their doctors put them on like 1,200 calorie diets. And I'm like, how are we doing this? I could not do that. I have a hard time going like anywhere above a 200 or 300 calorie deficit. Okay. In general, you want to make small adjustments. So with that same person, if they were at 3,000, I'd be like, okay, let's take you down to 2,800 for now. And then move you down to 26 and 24. And we'll keep going. And I mean, if you're losing at a certain calorie amount, you want to be conservative. If you're losing at 2,600 and you keep losing, why would I change it and make you eat less for no reason, right? We're going to save. I'd rather have that room to save, to pull away from when maybe our progress stalls and we need to pull away from it, or maybe we need a diet break. That's why it's important to analyze that data and get enough data so we know what's going on. We know what we're inputting into our body and we can make those adjustments. So definitely doing too much too soon, which anything in fitness that could be problematic is definitely problematic for tracking macros. So be conservative, even if you use a macro calculator, even if you do the recommendations I give you, keep in mind of what you're currently eating at the moment too, okay, and where that goal is, and gradually bring yourself down to that if you need to, right? So something to keep in mind. 2 more. Number 7, we have ignoring emotional eating. This is a big one. This is a root cause issue, right? I like to address issues at the root cause, and a lot of them are actually a lot simpler than you think. With emotional eating, now as far as overcoming them, it can be challenging, but I feel like once we discover what it is and why you do what you do, most people have like 3 to 4 general causes of emotional eating. You know, it could be boredom, it could be stress, it could be fatigue, like we're tricking our body into eating more because like, oh, when I eat I get energy, and it could be hormonal. There's a couple other ones in there too, but those are the big ones. And once we kind of get to the root of that, and then what that reason specifically is for you, and kind of biting that habit in the butt, that's when we'll make the change. So like, let's say there's somebody that they are boredom snacking, right? So they work from home, or you know, they have a desk job, and when things are slow, there's like, I'm hungry, and then they just start snacking. Maybe they have a snack drawer at work and they're just snacking. Well, there's a couple routes for this. We acknowledge the instances of when they're bored, and they can swap the snacks that they're currently eating with healthier low-cal versions. So like maybe they can eat a ton of stuff like celery and hummus or pretzels, and you can eat a ton of it without a lot of like calories, I guess is the word I'm looking for, without a lot of consequence, I should say. So that way, that kind of helps slow it down, but it satisfies that need. Or maybe they choose to chew gum, or maybe it's a 0-calorie drink, so they're still getting that kind of stimulation, but it's not necessarily from like Reese's cups and potato chips and whatever it may be. That is one option, and that could almost be one step to kind of ease people off. And then the next step, they could just choose to stop the snacking entirely and replace it with another habit. Like maybe when they're bored and they feel like snacking, they're actually going to get up and go for a walk, or maybe they're going to read a book, or just choose to do something productive that doesn't involve eating, and that's just like a habit shift. So that is really key, and that's one of the beauties of coaching, honestly, because we get to nab it in the butt. I don't know why I'm having trouble with my words today. But all right, we're on the last one. I think I need to put my glasses on to be a little bit more festive, my Elton John glasses. But just let's recap the other 7 before we go on to the last one. So top mistakes I see with tracking food and macros. Number 1 is ignoring micronutrients. Number 2 is overlooking food quality. Number 3 is being too rigid. Number 4 is neglecting fiber. Number 5 is inconsistent tracking. Number 6 is setting unrealistic goals. Number 7, ignoring emotional eating. And number 8 is lack of education. Okay, so like I was saying, tracking is a tool, but tracking is also a skill. It takes time to learn, just like anything. You're gonna mess up a couple times, you're gonna feel overwhelmed, but once you get the hang of things and you get in a groove and you find what things are and how to do things. There's been many times I've picked up tracking and then put it down and came back to it, and each time I'm a little bit better, taken long breaks, went back to it, so it's an ever evolving thing, but it is very worth it because it is a skill and you're investing in your health with that skill. That's totally different than, doing a keto diet, because with those kinds of diets, tracking, we're always going to classify, unless something crazy happens, we're always going to classify food by calories, macro and micronutrients. You're always going to have that reference. It's not going to be Weight Watcher points. It's not going to be keto. Like, we're always going to have those to reference. Like, what do you do? Like I said, with Weight Watchers, like, what if you can't convert something to points? Or what if their program shuts down? What do you do? How do you modify? Like with this, you can always modify. It's just about adjusting and fitting the foods to fit your goals. Okay. But with the lack of education, you have a couple routes to go, right? I mean, it depends on the kind of person you are. Like me, I'm like a self-starter. I personally love like just educating myself. I'll do things myself. I would rather like Google how to do something, research something, take a course, read a book, whatever, to try to figure out how to do something. So that's just how I've been. That's really how I got into the fitness journey in general. So if you're that kind of person, by all means, do it yourself, figure it out yourself. There's plenty of resources out there. But then maybe you are that person, or maybe you're not, but you're just busy, you're overwhelmed, you have kids, you have a busy life, and you're like, the last thing I want to do, or it doesn't interest you, the last thing I want to do is learn how to track macros. This is annoying. This is too overwhelming. I don't even know where to start, especially in this day and age. I mean, even 5-10 years ago when I was searching the internet, the resources were a lot more limited and everybody kind of had a go-to thing. Like everybody went to bodybuilding.com. Like I don't even think bodybuilding.com is like a thing. You have to like pay a monthly subscription now, but like everybody went there for fitness stuff. Like there was a couple places, like big places that people went to, and now we're in this age of data overload, information overload, and it's like you can just find 10,000 different resources that are kind of the same, but they all have a little tweak, and each resource will tell you why the other person is wrong and they're right, and this creates a big sense of confusion. So I can understand even nowadays why it would be hard to seek out information on your own, because it does get very overwhelming very fast, especially with TikTok too. Like TikTok, that's like really amplified. It's going to tell you eating fat is bad, do this instead. Eating carbs is bad, do this instead. It's always just something extreme, and the way they sell it, it's very convincing, and it can confuse you, especially when you're just looking through hundreds of like 10-second videos. So if that's you, that's when you seek out the guidance of a mentor, the guidance of a coach. And shameless promo, why wouldn't you want a coach like me? Who, wears these fabulous Elton John sunglasses. But seriously, if you are looking for a coach who takes a realistic approach, I'm very proud of my ability to take a realistic approach to tracking food, because for so long I was thinking that you had to do the bodybuilder route. You had to do the chicken, broccoli, and rice. You couldn't fit in the foods you enjoyed. And I was somebody who was not necessarily a picky eater, but I had a lot of non-negotiables. I love drinking flavored drinks. I love chocolate. I love having dessert every night. I love going out to eat with my husband, and I can still reach my goals without killing myself and restricting myself. And I can fit in the foods that I enjoy, cheese, whatever it may be. I can fit in what I enjoy while still reaching my goals. And through my methods, I help you with that. So if you are interested in nutrition coaching, you can apply in the link below, but also make sure to grab your free macro calculations for Fitmas. So thank you for being here. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss another day of Fitmas. I'm happy to have you here, and thank you. Let me know also, before I leave, comment below what macro tracking mistake you feel like you struggle with the most below, and we can have a little chat. I'll maybe coach you through it down there. All right. But until next time, guys, have a wonderful day, and bye for now.